In the beginning, there is only silence, not the kind that follows sound, but the kind that exists before it ever was. A silence so complete, even time forgets to move. In that stillness, the question stirs, what if the universe hides doors within itself? Space stretches endlessly, yet folds like a dream. Gravity hums beneath the cosmic veil, not as a pull, but as a whisper, shaping everything that will ever be. Einstein once listened to that whisper and heard something deeper. That space and time are not separate threads, but one living fabric, bending, twisting, breathing. A single curve in that fabric could be a story in itself, a secret bridge between two impossible points. But can something connect two places that may not even exist yet? Could the universe, vast, cold, and ancient, allow shortcuts through its own skin? Wormholes, they call them. Tunnels not dug by hands, but by equations. Portals not built by technology, but by truth itself. To look for them is to gaze into a paradox, a path that might lead forward and backward, everywhere and nowhere at once. And so, as the stars begin to shimmer in this dark ocean of thought, we take our first step into the impossible, where science meets myth, and silence becomes the sound of wonder. The year is 1915. Europe trembles under the weight of war, but in a small study in Berlin, another kind of revolution is unfolding. One made not of bullets, but of thought. A single man sits beneath the dim light of his desk, surrounded by pages that seem to glow with madness. Albert Einstein, hair unkempt, eyes ablaze with insomnia, is writing equations that will unmake the universe, and then rebuild it. For centuries, gravity had been a mystery of falling apples and circling planets. Newton's world was clockwork, precise, obedient, predictable. But Einstein looks deeper. He sees that the clock is not ticking in the universe. The clock is the universe. Time and space are not separate actors upon a stage. They are the stage itself. And gravity, that invisible force, is nothing more than the bending of that stage beneath the weight of existence. Imagine a vast fabric, stretching in all directions. Drop a star upon it, and the fabric curves. Drop a galaxy, and the fabric folds like velvet. Under the hand of God, planets don't orbit because they are pulled. They orbit because they are following the curves of this invisible geometry. Space tells matter how to move. Matter tells space how to bend. It is a dance so elegant, it might as well be divine. But Einstein's curved dream does more than explain what we already see. It whispers of what might be. If space-time can bend, could it also fold enough to touch itself? Could two distant corners of the cosmos kiss across an unseen bridge? Einstein's equations don't forbid it. In fact, they quietly permit it. Hidden in the mathematics is the seed of something wondrous, a tunnel through reality itself. Later, others would give this tunnel a name, the Einstein-Rosen Bridge, a passage through the folds of space-time, perhaps linking not just two places, but two moments. One could fall into the mouth of gravity and emerge somewhere or somewhen else. To the human mind, it was myth disguised as math. To the universe, Perhaps it was truth wearing the mask of imagination. In those first papers, Einstein didn't speak of time travel. He spoke of symmetry, of elegance, of how reality might fold to preserve its own balance. But in that symmetry, a deeper possibility shimmered. If space could connect distant points, could time connect distant nows? Could the past and the future be different rooms of the same cosmic house? The thought alone was terrifying and intoxicating. Each equation became a landscape, the curvature of space-time, a valley where light itself could slide. The event horizon, a silent shore, where time slows to a crawl. Gravity became more than physics. It became poetry, the language through which the cosmos speaks of itself. And in that poetry, wormholes were born as metaphors of hope. The promise that nothing is truly too far or too lost, yet even Einstein hesitated. He called his own bridges mathematical curiosities. He feared they might collapse the moment they formed, like dreams too fragile for the waking world, but the seed had been planted, and seeds have a way of growing, even in the dark. A century later, physicists would stare into computer screens glowing with simulations of curved space-time, watching tunnels form and dissolve like breaths. They would name them after the man who first bent reality with his mind, Einstein-Rosen. But perhaps, if he were alive to see it, he would only smile faintly and say, "The universe has always been cleverer than us." Einstein's curved dream was not a theory. It was an awakening. It taught us that the cosmos is not a static map, but a living organism, constantly reshaping itself. That the shortest path between 2 points might not be a straight line, but a leap through the folds of being. It was the moment when order surrendered to revelation, when numbers began to hum like music, and the boundaries between imagination and truth quietly dissolved. In that revelation, a new language was born, one written not in words, but in the geometry of existence. The equations became incantations, each curve 32 Centurchenfers, a stanza, each constant, a heartbeat. And for the first time, humanity understood that to describe the universe was to feel it, to stand before the infinite and whisper. So this is how reality bends. The pen in Einstein's hand finally rests. Outside, the night deepens over Berlin. Inside, the fabric of the cosmos has been forever rewritten. He leans back, exhausted, unaware that his dream has just cracked open the door to the impossible, a door through which others will one day try to step. And as the ink dries on his paper, the silence of the room becomes sacred, for in that silence, a new kind of music has begun to play, the sound of space-time learning to speak. It began, as all miracles do, with a question that refused to die. If space-time could curve, could it also connect? Could the universe, in its infinite stillness, contain a secret passage between two distant shores of reality? Einstein and his collaborator, Nathan Rosen, followed that whisper into the mathematics. And what they found changed everything. Hidden deep within the equations of general relativity lay a structure so strange it almost mocked logic, a tunnel piercing through the geometry of existence. A bridge from one universe to another, from one point in time to somewhere else, perhaps even to someone else. They called it the Einstein-Rosen bridge. To most, it was only theory, a phantom scribbled in chalk. But to those who understood its implications, it was both terrifying and divine. For if such a bridge could exist, it would mean the cosmos itself was threaded with shortcuts, veins of possibility woven through the infinite body of space. Imagine two black holes, not as destroyers, but as gateways, each a mouth of gravity, devouring light, devouring time. Now imagine that at the heart of one, a tunnel forms, smooth, invisible, elegant, leading to the heart of another, not across distance, but through it, not through stars and vacuum, but through the very fabric of reality. On one end, a black hole, the ultimate abyss, swallowing all. On the other, its mirror, a white hole, a theoretical fountain that spits everything back out. One consumes, one creates. Together, they form a loop that defies both chaos and reason. A cosmic yin and yang, life and death made into geometry. It was the first time physics dared to imagine resurrection. But there was a catch. There is always a catch. The bridge, though beautiful in numbers, was unstable, a heartbeat of existence collapsing the instant it was born. To keep it open, something extraordinary would be required. Matter not bound by ordinary rules. Not atoms, not energy as we know it. Something stranger, something impossible. Physicists would later call it exotic matter, a fuel of the forbidden, possessing negative energy density, capable of pushing space apart rather than pulling it in. In a universe where gravity always attracts, exotic matter would repel. It would hold the tunnel open against the crushing weight of its own nature. Without it, the wormhole would implode, a cosmic throat closing upon itself before a single photon could pass through. This was the paradox that haunted them. The equations allowed a bridge between universes, but the universe itself refused to let it live. And yet, even knowing that, the thought refused to fade. Because if nature could imagine such a bridge through Einstein's equations, could it not also build one? Maybe somewhere, hidden in the folds of the cosmos, one already existed, unseen, untouched, waiting. The mind can't help but dream. Where the laws of nature hesitate, that is how discovery begins, with disobedience. Physicists began sketching space-time diagrams like cartographers mapping the unthinkable. Circles became singularities, lines became timelines, bent and twisted until they crossed themselves. One end labeled this universe, the other another. Between them, the bridge, a thin throat of geometry connecting the impossible. But these maps had no color, no stars, no light. They were the skeleton of infinity, stripped of its soul. To visualize them was to confront something that existed beyond imagination. A structure that felt alive and hungry, like the universe dreaming of escape. In thought experiments, they sent light through the tunnel. It vanished. They sent equations. They broke. Reality itself seemed to resist the idea of being folded. It was as if the cosmos were saying, "You may draw my secrets, but you may not cross them." Still, humanity could not look away. The wormhole became a mirror for our deepest longings, to escape distance, to conquer time, to reunite what was lost. It became the ultimate metaphor for love, loss, and return, the dream that somewhere, somehow, everything connects again. Science, in its most sacred moments, often flirts with faith. And in the Einstein-Rosen bridge, the two met like lovers at the edge of eternity. One demanded proof, the other whispered belief. Between them, the bridge trembled. Half math, half myth. But the more they tried to stabilize it, the more fragile it became. Quantum mechanics, that unpredictable trickster, entered the scene and began to laugh. At microscopic scales, spacetime is no longer smooth but wild, jittering, frothing, chaotic. Even if a wormhole formed, quantum fluctuations would tear it apart faster than thought. A bridge that could never be crossed. A miracle destined to devour itself. And yet, we still dream of it, because the Einstein-Rosen bridge is not just a structure, it's a statement. Says that reality might be stranger than belief, that the laws of physics may conceal loopholes written in the fine print of creation, that the universe, vast and indifferent, might still contain doorways for those bold enough to seek them. In the imagination, the bridge gleams, smooth, silent, eternal. But in the equations, it collapses into darkness, miracle and monster, born of the same mind, a cosmic paradox that promises escape, only to vanish the moment we reach for it. Einstein himself doubted it ever existed in nature. He believed the universe was elegant, not indulgent. He did not build bridges for travelers, only for truth. But his equations betrayed him, revealing possibilities too beautiful to ignore. Others would take his reluctant dream and chase it into the depths of physics. They would find new theories, new geometries, new hopes, but they would also find something darker, that the closer we come to crossing that bridge, the more reality begins to tear. For every creation, there is destruction. For every doorway, a cost. And as the Einstein-Rosen bridge shimmered on paper, humanity stood at its edge, seeing for the first time that knowledge itself could be dangerous. It was the dawn of a new kind of awe, not the awe of discovery, but the awe of realization, that some doors are not meant to be opened, that the universe keeps its secrets not out of cruelty, but because the truth is heavier than we can bear. And so the bridge remains, suspended between equations and existence, a symbol of our brilliance and our boundaries, proof that the human mind can imagine beyond the reach of nature itself. It exists on paper, but the moment we try to build it, it crumbles. Beneath every atom, beneath every flicker of light, the universe grows restless. It trembles not from sound, but from uncertainty, a rhythm too small for human eyes. Here, in the underworld of existence, the stage of reality begins to fray. Space and time are no longer continuous things. They dissolve into something wild and alive. This is the Planck scale, the smallest theater imaginable, where dimensions lose their meaning and certainty is outlawed. Zoom in far enough, and the smooth fabric of space-time turns into foam. A chaotic sea, endlessly bubbling with creation and annihilation. Tiny universes appear and vanish in blinks shorter than thought. Energy rises and collapses into nothing. Nothing gives birth to everything, and everything returns to nothing again. To us, reality feels still, solid, predictable. But down here, it is anything but. This is where gravity, Einstein's serene geometry, meets the madness of quantum mechanics. Order shakes hands with chaos. Logic meets improvisation. And in the gaps between those handshakes, something extraordinary begins to happen. Wormholes, not vast tunnels carved between galaxies, but microscopic bridges, flickering, unstable, and yet unimaginably many. Quantum theory suggests they might form spontaneously, linking different points of spacetime before dissolving again into the foam. They appear like whispers, so brief that even light has no time to pass through them. But they exist, even if only for a heartbeat. Physicists call this quantum foam, a storm beneath existence, every Planck length, that unfathomable 1 trillionth of a centimeter, ripples with birth and death. Every grain of space may be riddled with these infant wormholes, connecting moments that were never supposed to meet. They collapse, reform, shimmer, too fast, too small, too hidden, and yet they might be the true heartbeat of the cosmos. Einstein dreamed of a smooth, continuous universe, but quantum mechanics laughs softly in reply. Continuity is an illusion. Reality, it says, is stitched together by uncertainty. Each quantum flicker is a question, not an answer. Each void hides a bridge, unseen but necessary. What if, in this invisible ocean of chaos, time itself is not a straight line, but a field of currents? Perhaps particles surf through microscopic eddies of time every moment, looping, rewinding, slipping forward again. Maybe what we call the present is just the average of infinite fluctuations, a blur of countless tiny time travels, happening everywhere, always. If so, time travel isn't a miracle, it's ordinary. It's happening right now, in the spaces between certainty and chaos. To observe this realm directly would be impossible. It exists beyond resolution, beyond the reach of any lens, but we can feel its echo. Quantum randomness, radioactive decay, the way light sometimes forgets which path it took. All of it hints at the same truth. Reality is not one thing, but a storm of possibilities pretending to be one. Imagine the universe, breathing in and out at the scale of infinity's smallest fraction. Each breath a rearrangement of reality's architecture. Each exhale a collapse of universes that never had the chance to be. Creation and destruction, not as opposites, but as partners in an endless waltz. To some, this sounds like madness. To others, it sounds like divinity, because in this restless foam, the cosmos is writing and erasing itself faster than time can count. And if wormholes flicker in and out of existence here, even for the briefest of instants, then perhaps time itself is not a single arrow, but a trembling string, vibrating with infinite possible histories. Maybe every moment we live has already happened. Countless times, in countless forms, each iteration a micro-echo of itself. And what we experience as continuity is just coherence, the universe momentarily agreeing with itself before dissolving again into quantum chaos. In this sense, the past is not gone. The future is not waiting. Both are being woven, right now, in every corner of this shimmering storm. Physicists like John Wheeler once suggested that these quantum wormholes might even connect separate universes, a multiverse foam where each bubble touches another. Reality, then, might not be singular at all. It might be infinite in number and fleeting in nature. Universes kissing for a breath before drifting apart forever. And somewhere, within that cosmic froth, our own existence might be just one temporary shimmer. But there's beauty in that instability, because if everything flickers, then everything is alive. Even space, even time, is not dead geometry, but pulse and rhythm. We are not drifting through the universe. We are part of its heartbeat. Each atom, each thought, each breath, vibrating with the same quantum tremor that births galaxies. The closer science gets to the fundamental truth, the more it sounds like poetry. We look for equations and find metaphors. We chase particles and find paradoxes. And the deeper we dive, the more the universe begins to whisper back, softly, as if embarrassed by its own brilliance. It tells us that creation and destruction are the same gesture seen from two directions. That time is not a ruler, but a ripple. That reality is not fixed. It's breathing. Perhaps, then, time travel isn't something we build. It's something we are. Each second, every thought, every atom, connecting to what was and what will be, in ways we cannot see but constantly perform. Our existence itself may be the proof that the universe loops within itself, invisibly, microscopically, always. The equations struggle to describe it. Words fall short. And so we are left with silence again, that ancient silence from before the beginning. But now, it feels different, because within it, we can almost hear the faint hum beneath all things, a quantum whisper, repeating endlessly through the foam, the sound of the universe breathing beneath mathematics. Imagine, for a moment, that the impossible has been solved, that someone, somewhere, has stabilized the bridge. Two mouths of a wormhole, gently spinning in the quiet dark, refusing to collapse. They exist, open and patient, waiting for a traveler brave enough to cross. Now imagine we take one mouth, one end of this cosmic tunnel, and move it, not slowly, but at near the speed of light. It races across the stars, caught in the grip of Einstein's own time dilation. For those watching from afar, its clock slows down. Seconds stretch. Minutes dissolve into nothing. And when the traveler finally brings it back to meet its twin, something extraordinary has happened. One mouth of the wormhole has aged less than the other. A door has been built, not just through space, but through time. Step into one side, and you emerge not only somewhere else, but someone else. A machine that does not tick or hum or burn, but breathes with the logic of the universe itself. A bridge that turns motion into memory. It sounds like magic. It isn't. It's pure relativity. The kind that makes reality tremble. Because in this geometry, cause and effect no longer know their place. You could leave on a Friday and arrive on a Thursday. You could meet yourself before you began the journey. You could send a message that reaches its destination before it's written. Time, once a steady river, folds back upon itself. and we find ourselves staring into a mirror that doesn't reflect what's in front of it, but what's behind, a mirror made not of glass, but of causality itself. Physicists call this the twin paradox, but it is only the beginning. If one mouth of the wormhole is accelerated to relativistic speed and returned, the two openings now exist in different times. A traveler stepping through could move backward relative to the outside world. A bridge turned against its own creator, and with that, the unthinkable question arises: what happens if you arrive before you left? The paradox unravels slowly, like a snake swallowing its own tail. If you could travel back in time, could you prevent your journey in the first place? And if you do, how could you have traveled at all? The logic of existence begins to fracture under the weight of its own recursion. Every effect demands a cause. But what if the cause is the effect? What if the loop is all there is? Philosophers call it the grandfather paradox, a macabre thought experiment wrapped in grief and logic. If you went back in time and prevented your own ancestor from living, would you erase yourself? And if you erased yourself, who pulled the trigger? The question devours its own answer. The universe, confronted with contradiction, has no words to speak, only silence. Some scientists propose that nature protects itself, that events always conspire to prevent paradox, that somehow, by the subtlest of alignments, the bullet always misses, the door always closes, the traveler always hesitates. This is called the Novikov self-consistency principle. The universe, even when bent into a loop, remains whole. The script of reality cannot be rewritten, only reread. Others, however, whisper of darker possibilities, that every choice, every contradiction, every impossible decision creates another branch, a splintered timeline where the paradox is absorbed rather than avoided. A multiverse born from a single disobedient thought. Each version of you taking a different step, each reality paying a different price. In such a universe, time is no longer a path. It is a mirror maze. Every reflection leads to another, each one insisting it's the original. Walk far enough, and you lose the meaning of before. Because before implies sequence, and sequence implies order, and order dissolves at the speed of light. Einstein warned that travel would twist causality into something unrecognizable. But what if causality is only a story we tell to make sense of an ocean too deep to see? Maybe every event is both cause and effect, each moment feeding into itself, a loop that never began and never ends. Maybe that's what eternity truly means. Not infinite time, but no time at all. Some physicists tried to imagine what living inside such a loop might feel like. A person stepping through the wormhole could meet their future self. They could shake hands, exchange words, perhaps even warn themselves. And yet, the warning was always destined to be given, always destined to be ignored. Freedom collapses into inevitability. Choice becomes choreography. Every movement already written, it's a terrifying grace to realize that the universe might be a dancer in its own preordained performance. Every step improvised, yet already known. Every echo part of a pattern larger than comprehension. But for others, the idea of loops brings a strange comfort. If time can fold back on itself, perhaps nothing is ever truly lost. Perhaps moments don't die. They linger, recurring endlessly, like waves striking the same forgotten shore. Love, laughter, grief. Each emotion suspended forever in the loops that built them. Maybe that's why déjà vu feels so hauntingly familiar. Maybe we've already been here, just from the other side of the mirror. And yet, the logic still burns. The thought of stepping through that bridge and meeting your own beginning is both divine and dreadful. To stand face to face with the past, not as memory, but as fact, is to unravel the illusion of identity itself. For if you can see your younger self, who is truly you? The observer or the observed? The traveler or the trail? Physics offers one last safeguard: quantum uncertainty. Perhaps the act of observation itself splinters the loop, preserving causality at the cost of coherence. The universe doesn't forbid paradox. It hides it, burying contradictions beneath layers of probability so dense we can never dig them out, like a magician guarding his final trick. But the deeper truth remains that to imagine time travel is to imagine a reality where before and after dissolve into one eternal reflection, where the mirror stares back, not with answers, but with questions. Who was first? What began? Did anything begin at all? The wormhole waits in silence, both bridge and abyss. It promises connection, but at the cost of comprehension. Through its mouth, the traveler sees infinity twisted into itself, a tunnel that leads not forward, but inward. Every step deeper becomes a return, every arrival a beginning. And somewhere within that symmetry lies the most unsettling realization of all, that perhaps the universe has always been a time machine, its past and future folded into a single, self-aware now. The clock ticks, the hands meet, and the question lingers in the still air. What if before was never real at all? For all our equations, all our telescopes, all our relentless reaching into the dark, the truth is, humanity has always been searching for something closer. We dream of wormholes not merely to cross the stars, but to cross ourselves, because beneath every theory of spacetime is a quiet confession. We are terrified of time. It moves one way, relentlessly, silently, without mercy. It steals what it gives. Every heartbeat pushes us forward. Even when we wish to stay, we can map galaxies, curve reality, fold light. But we cannot return to the moment we love most. And so we look to the heavens for permission. We whisper into Einstein's geometry, "Please, let there be a way back." But maybe the universe has already answered. Only not in physics, but in feeling, because in our minds, time is never linear, memory bends as easily as light. Regret folds the past until it touches the present. Longing stretches moments that no longer exist until they ache inside us as if they never ended. The human heart, it seems, already knows the mathematics of curvature. Every time we remember, we travel. Each photograph is a wormhole, a tear in the present through which we glimpse the ghosts of what once was. The sound of a loved one's laugh, the smell of rain on an old street, a song that opens a door we didn't know was still locked. These are our small, merciful time machines. No equations needed, only emotion. Einstein said, "Time is relative." But he didn't say how deeply we would feel that truth. Because for us, seconds are not measured by clocks. They are measured by, meaning a single instant can stretch into eternity when it holds something we love. And a decade can vanish in the blink of an eye when it carries something we've lost. We are all travelers, not through space, but through the echoes of ourselves. When we think of wormholes, we imagine tunnels glowing with energy, cosmic shortcuts between galaxies. But maybe they are metaphors wearing the mask of physics. Maybe they exist because we need them to. Because without them, we could not bear the finality of time. Maybe every equation is a prayer, written in symbols instead of words, begging the universe to bend for us just once. And perhaps it does. Perhaps in the way we remember, in the way we love, the universe grants us that mercy. Because love itself warps time. A single connection can make hours feel like seconds, or a lifetime like a moment. When we stand beside someone we cannot imagine losing, the present stretches endlessly, defying entropy. And when they are gone, time collapses into grief. Sharp, singular, infinite. Maybe that's what Einstein really discovered. Not that space-time bends around stars, but that it bends around souls. That consciousness is another kind of gravity, capable of curving the universe inward, pulling the past and the future toward the fragile light of awareness. Perhaps we are the bridges we seek. Each thought, each act of memory, a tiny Einstein-Rosen bridge between who we were and who we are becoming. There is something humbling in that idea that our longing is not a flaw, but a force. That yearning itself might be the human version of curvature. The cosmos folds space. We fold time. And in that symmetry, we find belonging. When we stare at the night sky, we aren't just looking outward. We are looking backward, billions of years. Every star is a memory still burning. Every photon a message from a past that refuses to die. The universe is made of echoes, and so are we. Perhaps that is why it feels so familiar, because its longing mirrors our own. Maybe time travel will never be a machine, or a tunnel or a device humming in the void. Maybe it is something simpler and infinitely harder. A forgiveness we give ourselves, a memory we learn to let go of, a love we learn to carry forward without needing to return. And so the equations soften, the cosmos quiets. What began as physics dissolves into poetry, the kind written not on chalkboards, but on hearts. We no longer ask the universe for escape. We ask only to understand why we ache for what cannot come back. In that ache lies the human equation, the one no scientist can solve, yet every soul lives by. It says, we are finite creatures who dream of infinity. We are small beings who remember eternity. And though we cannot stop time, we can hold meaning long enough to make it gentle. Somewhere, beyond all the math, the wormholes, the paradoxes, the infinite light years, there is a single, fragile truth. We wanted to build a bridge through the universe, but all along, we were just trying to build one through each other. And in that moment, amid infinite space, the cosmos becomes still. Because for once, it recognizes itself in us. Across the great silence of space, the dream refuses to die. Even now, In laboratories and observatories scattered across the Earth, a small band of minds still reach toward the impossible. They are the guardians of humanity's oldest hunger, the desire to go beyond what the universe allows. Kip Thorne once described it not as rebellion, but as reverence. He believed that to question the limits of reality was to show faith in its depth. Alongside him, writers like Carl Sagan blurred the line between science and wonder, weaving stories that dared to turn equations into empathy. In Contact, Sagan asked, "If the cosmos is so vast, would it not be cruel if we could never touch it?" Thorne answered that question not with poetry, but with math. His calculations for a traversable wormhole became the first serious blueprint for a miracle, a tunnel that could stay open long enough for something, perhaps someone, to cross. The equations were delicate, fragile things. They demanded negative energy, exotic matter, a fuel that still dances on the edge of the imaginary. But for the first time, the word impossible began to flicker. Because if relativity allows the bridge and quantum physics hints at the foam, then somewhere between them might lie a doorway waiting to be stabilized. Modern physicists chase that whisper still. Miguel Alcubierre proposed a drive that doesn't move a ship at all, but bends the space around it. In his equations, spacetime becomes pliable, compressing in front, expanding behind, carrying its passenger like a wave carries a leaf. To distant observers, it would look as if the ship had outrun light itself. But inside the bubble, time flows gently, as if obeying a private rhythm, a dream of faster-than-light travel born not from defiance, but from geometry. And yet, every elegant idea comes with a shadow. Each equation that promises freedom also whispers its warning. The universe guards its chronology. Energy requirements soar to the absurd. The mass of planets, then galaxies. Quantum instability gnaws at the edges, threatening to collapse the dream into radiation. Causality, that sacred thread tying past to future, trembles. It's as if reality allows us to peek through the keyhole, but never open the door. Even so, the pursuit continues. New theories suggest that quantum entanglement, the eerie connection between particles across space, might itself be the foundation of wormholes. Some physicists now whisper ER, EPR, Einstein and Rosen's bridge, mirrored with Einstein and Podolsky's paradox, a symmetry too beautiful to ignore. Perhaps every entangled particle is a microscopic tunnel through space-time. Perhaps connection is the universe's most fundamental law. And what if that is the lesson all along? That every attempt to reach across the cosmos, every wormhole, every drive, every signal flung toward the stars, is simply an echo of our need to connect. The same need that drives us to speak, to love, to remember. Maybe the universe is not resisting us at all. Maybe it is protecting the story, ensuring that no one writes the ending before the middle is lived. Carl Sagan once said that science is not only compatible with spirituality, it is a profound source of it. To seek the truth of the cosmos is to stand in awe of something that humbles and sustains us at once. Tune. Scientists who chase wormholes know this. They do not chase escape. They chase understanding, knowing full well they may never touch what they study. Their calculations are acts of faith written in symbols, What if the impossible is simply nature's way of teaching patience? For every dream of traversal, there is the discipline of mathematics. For every fantasy of flight, there is the humility of proof. Between them lies the human condition. Daring yet deferent, hopeful yet aware, we dream because we must. But the universe reminds us to dream carefully. And perhaps impossibility itself is not an obstacle, but a form of order, a boundary that keeps meaning intact, that ensures cause and effect remain a conversation rather than a chaos. Without limits, even miracles would lose their shape. It is restraint that gives beauty its edge, so the guardians of the impossible keep working. Equations evolve, simulations shimmer, telescopes watch the sky for the slightest tremor of space gone strange. Every discovery blurs the boundary between fantasy and reality, but none dare claim victory. They know that the deeper they dive, the more the cosmos looks back, calm, ancient, amused, and perhaps that's the final lesson, that the universe, in its quiet wisdom, allows us to imagine everything so that we might learn gratitude for the few things we are allowed to touch. Wonder was never meant to be conquered, only kept. In the end, the chalkboards are wiped clean, the computers hum to silence, and the stars remain patient as ever. The dream persists, but softer now, less desperate, because maybe it's enough to know that the bridge could exist, that reality is flexible enough to make room for hope. And as the scientists look up, equations glowing faintly on the glass of midnight, the cosmos feels almost human, vast yet kind, unreachable yet listening. The pursuit of the impossible, after all, has never been about crossing the universe. It has always been about understanding why we long to. And so it ends, not in triumph, but in quiet acceptance, hope balanced by humility. The guardians keep their watch, and the universe keeps its secret. It begins again, in silence. The same silence that once held the first question, the first light, the first thought. Only now, it feels different, not empty, but full of echoes, of memories, of all the moments that dared to exist between beginnings and endings. We have crossed equations and paradoxes, galaxies and hearts, only to find ourselves back here, in the same quiet that started it all. Perhaps this was never a journey through space at all, but a journey through meaning, wormholes, time travel, space-time itself. They were not doorways, but mirrors, reflections of our own longing to understand what it means to be. Maybe the universe doesn't hide shortcuts through its body. Maybe it is the shortcut, a single, infinite curve folding endlessly through itself, every moment touching every other, every dream bending the geometry of time just enough to be remembered. Every thought we have is a tiny distortion of space-time, a ripple of awareness, a bridge between what was and what might be. In our minds, time loops and bends without resistance. We remember forward and imagine backward. We live inside our own wormholes every day, calling them memory, love, and wonder. Perhaps that is the true engine of the cosmos. Not gravity, not light, but curiosity, the desire of the universe to look at itself and ask, "What am I?" Every star, every consciousness, every fleeting second is part of that question, and each time we reach for an answer, We bend reality a little more, just enough to make it aware that it's being seen. So the loop closes. Gently, without finality, the beginning becomes the end becomes the question, and in that eternal reflection, the universe listens, not with ears, but with being itself. And perhaps, in the stillness between each heartbeat of creation, it whispers the one truth we were always meant to hear. You were never outside the wormhole. You were always inside the loop.